Good morning, everybody. Yesterday in BC, the Chief Health Officer of British Columbia had a press conference and had a hard time during that press conference. And this is something that I've been noticing across the board of countries that have had COVID-19 cases or clusters pop up. It's a very stressful situation, but interesting to note. Here we go. And the broader reporting on this is much more like it's worth the six minute watch. I'm just going to show you this part of the press conference here, but link is in the description. Go watch it. It's really interesting. Here we go.
At this time, I am asking people to consider having virtual gatherings, to consider not coming together, particularly if you have people in your gathering who are elderly, who are more
the fatigue.
So that speaks pretty loudly to how serious this is, regardless of what you think. She was saying people in your gatherings who are and presumably like going to be higher risk, but she couldn't even get it out, right? Like, what does that mean? Tim Hortons is scrapping roll up the rim cups over coronavirus concerns after Starbucks did this. Here's CTV News reporting. Tim Hortons says it's getting rid of roll up the rim cups due to the novel coronavirus and is moving much of the annual contest to its app. The coffee and donut chain is removing all of the contents paper cups over health concerns around staff handling items recently gripped and sipped by customers returning them for prizes. Tim Hortons does not identify COVID-19 as the catalyst, but it says the current public health environment means it's not the right time for team members to collect rolled up tabs that have been in people's mouths. Yeah, and they're paraphrasing this, but essentially, I agree. Somebody said they're still taking cash. That's a different thing. You don't sip cash, right? Like, if you're sick, you don't feel bad about licking cash, right? But if you're sick, you don't feel bad about licking your cup and getting all the whatever it is, whatever you've got in your cup. If you've got like a hot chocolate and some whipped cream or something like that, and then you hand it back to the worker. Oh my goodness, what a nightmare. I don't think I'd be able to. I used to do customer service. I worked at Taco Bell in the drive-thru, and sometimes customers you'd put your hand out, right? And sometimes customers would put their hand into your hand and then open. Why? Anyway, so I don't think I could do customer service now. I don't think I could. So this makes sense to me. I wouldn't want to be taking roll up the rim tabs either. Anyway, back to this. The company says it will redistribute all 30 million worth of prizes to restaurant giveaways and digital contests. On Friday, Tim Hortons and McDonald's Canada became the latest coffee purveyors to stop accepting reusable mugs brought in by customers amid concerns about the epidemic, with the number of confirmed cases in Canada rising to 57 as of Saturday. And not just coffee houses are impacted. Sports are impacted. There was 2 days ago, this is March 6th, today is March 8th. There was an idea floated, maybe major sports leagues will have no audience in attendance and it'll just be televised and, be ready to not have fans in attendance. And well, there's pushback. Owners of Houston Rockets and Florida Panthers opposed to games with no fans if coronavirus worsens. Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? The knife cuts both ways. On one side, you like fans to be there. On the other side, fans are drinking out of cups and screaming and yelling and all sorts of other stuff. There's, not that you always get sick going to a game like that, but with something like the coronavirus, which, who knows, right? I think there are more questions than answers with this. All the experts are saying one thing. There's lots of people who say the expert the other day on the Channel 4 thing that I shared on Twitter, there was a Channel 4 interview with a virology expert, the person working on the vaccine, and I thought those are some pretty good credentials. But he would also have a vested interest in this thing being bad, right? Because he'd make more money. So is it in his best interest to overstate how bad this is? I don't know. I'm just showing you what's happening, okay? I'm trying to tell you what I see happening through the news. So I might be wrong, but Who knows? I don't think that anybody knows the real answer. I don't think anybody has 100% clear picture of what's going on right now. So that's the reality of it. I think I'd rather be safe than sorry. I think I'd rather err on the side of caution, right? Like when you've got a situation where you don't know how contagious something is, going out to a crowded arena to watch a sport game seems like a bad idea, right? Oh yeah, I'll buy my drink and my popcorn and right and have everybody spit on it and eat it, and oh man. And maybe I'm overreacting, possibly, but maybe not. Moving into what's happening in Italy. Remember yesterday when I talked about how on the 21st of February, there were 17 cases in Italy, and by the 25th, there were hundreds of cases in Italy, and by the 6th, there was 3,000 cases in Italy. Last night, this happened. Extraordinary times. Italy's draft emergency coronavirus law to ban entry and exit to whole of Lombardy region, capital, Milan, Venice, Padua, Parma, and 8 others. Weddings and funerals to be banned. Cinemas, gyms, pubs, museums, all closed. Anyone violating the law can be arrested and fined. Establishments that can stay open, such as places of worship, supermarkets, and restaurants, can only do so if they can guarantee a distance of minimum 1 meter between all visitors. If they cannot, they will be closed. Supermarkets are only allowed to open in the week, all closed on weekends. Leave for all health workers suspended. So anybody, if you were on vacation and you were a nurse, you're coming back. Apparently the UK and across the EU, they're activating or allowing retired nurses and doctors to come back into the field if they want to. And I don't have a link for that. That's just something that I watch Dr. John Campbell most days, and he mentioned that yesterday or the day before. He mentioned that as something that he'd like to see, and then I think that actually became adopted across Italy anyway, and I don't know about the UK. I think the UK too. So anyway, here's this is some Canadian news that I thought was interesting. Moving out of coronavirus, but staying with healthcare, and this goes to showing how already strained our healthcare system is. We don't have capacity for a bad flu, right? Like if we had a bad flu season, that could potentially overwhelm our hospitals. You can get the flu and coronavirus at the same time, and well, there's lots of exponential growth math out there talking about how if you look at what happened in Italy, if you look at what happened in Iran, what happened in Wuhan, when this all started. This started in December and then blew up in Wuhan January 22nd, right? December 30th was the first kind of rumblings that something had gone wrong. And by January 22nd, we had Wuhan in almost full lockdown. That was when the videos of people just falling over and dying were coming out. And then by February 1st, Wuhan had been in lockdown. And now we've got multiple epicenters. Iran's doing the same thing, shutting down cities. I tweeted about that. So in just our regular everyday, when we don't see cities being quarantined across the world for flu, we have the potential in Canada to be overwhelmed. MRIs in Saskatchewan are overwhelmed right now, right? There's an 18% demand, 11% increase in capacity. That's overwhelmed, right? They can't meet the demand. And maybe this is an emergency. Maybe it's not a terrible emergency. People maybe aren't dying because they're missing MRIs. But if that's what you think my point is, the point is lost on you, right? Here we go. Global news. Federally imposed deadline approaching for Saskatchewan to stop private MRIs. Saskatchewan's health minister says he's concerned that the federal transfer dollars will be at risk if the province doesn't re-examine their current funding model for MRIs. Quote, I've sent a letter, a little while ago to the federal minister asking her for the opportunity to meet and discuss this, said Jim Reeder. Here's where I'm very hopeful that common sense will prevail. The Canadian Health Act states that starting April 1st, jurisdictions across Canada will have to provide free MRIs as a way to protect Canadians from paying out of pocket for Medicare. This goes against legislation passed by the Saskatchewan government in 2015 that allowed people to pay for MRIs. Based on the funding model, private clinics must provide a second scan to patients on the public waitlist at no charge. Every MRI that's done privately takes another one off the public queue without being paid for by tax dollars, Reeder said. If anything, I think it's beneficial to the public queue. If the federal government is going to force us to do what other provinces are doing, I think it would be a step backwards. In 2016, the federal health minister, Jane Philpott, warned Saskatchewan government to, quote, put an end to the province's private pay MRI system. Philpott said healthcare is based on necessary care and not based on who has the funds to get to the front of the line. I scroll down a little bit. The Saskatchewan government, I just want to point out here, they interviewed the NDP, and I don't know if the NDP in Saskatchewan is the official opposition or whatever, but the NDP says, yeah, we believe that healthcare, which is what the federal government is saying, we believe that healthcare should be doled out on need first and not who can pay for it. Okay. Communism. Yay. Anyway, back to this. The Saskatchewan government implemented its MRI model as a way to get people off the wait list. However, demand continues to increase. See, these people are trying to solve a problem, not just dole out healthcare in the most fair way and the most fair according to you. Anyway, back to this. We're concerned what happened in the last 3 years is we increased capacity by 11%, but referrals are up by 18%. The wait lists are increasing. Overwhelmed system, right? Reader said. The health minister said this is the result of aging population and MRI is becoming the go-to test to address the demand. The province recently extended MRI services in Saskatoon and Regina. Reader hasn't heard back from the federal minister, but he's confident the government won't start clawing back money until 2022. They're saying April 1st, but essentially that's what they're going to have the clock start ticking, Reader said. We've got some time to make our case here. I like his confidence. Meanwhile, in Ontario, if you just Google private MRI clinics, there's no fight about this. Here's a couple. You want some more places? I can get some more places for you, right? It's weird that we could do that and have our benefits pay for it if your benefits cover that, right? If not, you could pay for it directly out of pocket if you want to, I think. Anyway, weird, right? Weird things happen. Maybe it's just the legislation that triggered that, right? Like I don't know why they're fighting Saskatchewan about it, but not Ontario. And like I said, maybe it's the particular legislation, but it's interesting that kind of stuff happens, right? Why target one province? Why can't it be normalized? Anyway, back to this. This is a federal kind of reporting. The opposition is doing their best to be effective in this minority parliament. And, well, here's what they're doing. National Post is reporting. We had to send a signal. Opposition parties want Liberals to wake up to their minority status. Opposition parties are firing the first major shots across the bow of the Liberal government with a move meant to remind them that they didn't win a majority government last fall. On Monday, the House will vote on a Conservative motion meant to give all of the opposition parties one more opposition day, special days on the House calendar when they control the agenda. Usually, even in a minority parliament, it is the governing party that decides what bills get debated on which days. Conservative House Leader Candice Bergen said that the Liberals haven't adapted to their new minority status. That motion was specifically a response to what the Liberals have been doing habitually over the last couple of months, not quite realizing that they're in a majority parliament, she said. With some restrictions, the government decides what the opposition days fall in the sitting of the calendar, and in this case, the Liberals decided to put the Conservatives' opposition day on a Friday, which is a shorter day in the House and also coincides with when many MPs leave Ottawa to return to their ridings. They were trying to punish us by giving us a Friday, said Bergen. We had to send a signal that they couldn't do that kind of thing. The Liberals have a strong minority and will be able to pass their budget or any other confidence motion with the help of any one of the three major opposition parties, but on committee votes, motions, and private members' business, they may not have the control over Parliament they did in the past government. The motion, which is expected to pass, would give the Bloc, NDP, and Conservatives one additional opposition day in the next 3 sitting weeks, and would prevent the government from putting any of them on a Wednesday or a Friday, the 2 shorter days. With fewer days left for debate, the government will be forced to slow down its own legislative agenda. The Liberals are trying to pass the new NAFTA agreement with the House and have several other bills they would like to make more progress on. Deputy Government Whip Jeanette Pettipas-Taylor raised the problem in the House during the debates on the Conservative motion. Quote, let me remind the House that this motion will delay several important bills, such as C4, the bill to implement the historic trade agreement between our great country, the United States and Mexico, she said during the debate on the issue. Let us remember that the United States, Mexico, and all premiers want this bill to be passed and passed quickly. The Liberals haven't announced a budget date yet, but they will have a limited set of options in the 3-week window to choose from with the opposition getting so much time. Bergen said the government should be managing its legislation better, and the Conservatives have given them an opportunity to move NAFTA forward. It's the government's responsibility to manage the business of the House. Despite having few ideological allies, Bergen's motion is one of several the Conservatives have managed to get through the minority parliament. The first vote in the new parliament was on a Conservative motion to establish a new committee on Canada-China relations and has already led to some difficult headlines for the Liberals. They've also successfully moved to have the $187 billion infrastructure program audited. And there's more to this, but it's kind of a lackluster ending to the article here. It just kind of, it's the conservatives saying the liberals play games, and the liberals kind of playing games. So, I mean, right, that's what they do. So what are you going to do? It's interesting how little attention it seems like the federal government is paying to the coronavirus. But I think that's going to change in the next few days. I can't see it not changing. Like, really. There's a lot going on around the world, and not every epicenter is behaving like Italy, but there's a lot of evidence that says there's more cases in South Korea. There's more cases, no more cases in Wuhan or Hubei, I think. No, Wuhan, but I think a couple of cases outside of Wuhan. Hubei province had a few, but I think Wuhan itself didn't have any. So there's some places that are controlling it, but those places that are controlling it are in full lockdown. Italy's walking into full lockdown. And our government's talking about political maneuvering, right? It seems kind of like tone deaf, doesn't it? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing it, right? Maybe I'm missing the news where they're talking fervently and seriously about this current threat and what we're going to do about it. Or maybe I missed the one where they're talking about the economic impact of China's production shutting down and how they're going to help start manufacturing in Ontario and out east and everywhere else, right? Like, maybe, did I miss those headlines, or they don't exist? Oh, okay. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Like, wouldn't you take this opportunity? Wouldn't you say, like, we've got enough of a bubble here that we can probably spin up a few, I don't know, PPE companies, a few PPE factories, maybe some incentives there, right? Have some raw materials sent to the factories and generating masks, et cetera, because we're going to need them, right? And they're not being produced currently where they were. Solving some problems? No, too much for our government. Let's play some procedural games instead. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful Sunday. Thanks for watching.